It's time now for Chapter 4 of Radiating Literature. Should I make the little dance more complicated each time? Let me know. Now, you might be asking, Holly, it seems like you're doing two a night. Why not just make it one video? And I'll tell you, I need to drink water in between each one, and that doesn't seem fun. And also, it already takes forever for these to upload to Facebook, so I didn't want it taking even longer. Alright, let's get to Chapter 4. This one is called The Letter, signed Bella. Francois had left the room. The magistrate was drumming thoughtfully. I don't know if y'all can hear that. On the table. Monsieur Bex, he said at length. Here we have directly conflicting testimony. Which are we to believe, Francois or Denise? Denise, said the commissary decidedly. It was she who let the visitor in. Francois is old and obstinate, and has evidently taken a dislike to Madame de Brille. Besides, our own knowledge tends to show that Renaud was entangled with another woman. Tiens! That's probably not how that's said. Sorry, y'all, cried Monsieur Tete. God, why, I'm going to stop saying the Monsieur thing. We're just doing last names. This is driving me crazy. We've forgotten to inform Poirot of that. He searched amongst the paper on the table, and finally handed the one he was in search of, to my friend. This letter, Poirot, we found in the pocket of the dead man's overcoat. Poirot took it and unfolded it. It was somewhat worn and crumpled, and was written in English in a rather unformed hand. My dearest one. Italics. Also, using a colon after my dearest one, which suggests that this is in fact a business letter. Anyways, why have you not written for so long? You do love me still, don't you? Your letters lately have been so different, cold and strange, and now this long silence. It makes me afraid. If you were to stop loving me! Just exclamation mark. But that's impossible. What a silly kid I am, always imagining things! Sorry, I keep missing the third. Everything's exclamation part. Jesus, okay. But if you did stop loving me, I don't know what I should do. Kill myself, perhaps! Oh, no. I couldn't live without you. Sometimes I fancy another woman is coming between us. Let her look out, that's all. And you, too! I'd soon as kill you as let her have you. I mean it. See, the I mean it just has a period, which is actually very threatening. Now we go into opening quotes. But there, I'm writing high-flown nonsense. You love me and I love you. Yes, love you, love you, love you. And then again, opening quotes. Your own adoring, and then Bella in all caps. There was no address or date, and Poirot handed it back with a grave face. And the assumption is le juge. The examining magistrate shrugged his shoulders. There's lots of shrugging. Obviously, Renaud was entangled with this Englishwoman, Bella. Maybe that's Cinderella. He comes over here, meets de Burle, and starts an intrigue with her. God, what a great euphemism. He cools off to the other, and she instantly suspects something. This letter contains a distinct threat. Poirot, at first sight, the case seemed simplicity itself, jealousy. The fact that Renaud was stabbed in the back seemed to point distinctly to its being a woman's crime. Love it. Love it. Love it. 'Cause you know how them ladies be. Although I actually always thought the theory was that poison was a woman's weapon. Anyways, but Poirot agrees. Poirot nodded. The stab in the back, yes, but not the grave. That was laborious work, hard work. No woman dug that grave, monsieur. That was a man's doing. Yeah, I mean, you know, women, they can't dig for shit. So it had to be a dude. The commissary exclaimed excitedly, Yes, yes, you are right. We did not think of that. You didn't think about how a grave got there? That seems like one of the first things you should think about. It was just like, oh man, a dude was stabbed back in a grave. Not in a graveyard. Everyone's just like, gonna ignore half of that evidence. Cool. As I said, continued Hotet, at first sight the case seemed simple, but the masked men and the letter you received from Renaud complicate matters. Here we seem to have an entirely different set of circumstances, but no relationship between the two. As regards the letter written to yourself, do you think it possible that it referred in any way to this Bella? And her threats? Poirot shook his head. Hardly. A man like Renaud, who has led an adventurous life in out-of-the-way places, would not be likely to ask for protection against a woman. Yeah, if I had a lady threaten me, I wouldn't ask for help, 'cause what could she do? Women are only known for stabbing people in the back, apparently. The examining magistrate nodded his head emphatically. My view exactly. Then we must look for the explanation of the letter. In Santiago, finished the commissary. I shall cable without delay to the police in the city, requesting full details of the murdered man's life out there, his love affairs, his business transactions, his friendships, and any enmities that he may have incurred. It will be strange if, after that, we do not hold a clue to his mysterious murder. The commissary looked round for approval. Excellent, said Poirot appreciatively. His wife, too, may be able to give us a pointer, added the magistrate. You have found no other letters from the Spella amongst Renaud's effects, said Poirot. No. Of course, one of our first proceedings was to search through his private papers in the study. We found nothing of interest, however. All seemed square and above board. The only thing out of the ordinary was his will. Now, when you're talking about a murdered man, and you say the only thing out of the ordinary is his will, I feel like that is a thing that should have been mentioned way before this. But anyways, here it is. Poirot ran through the document. So, a legacy of £1,000 to Mr. Stonor. Stonor? I want to say Stoner, but it's an O, not an E. Who is he, by the way? Renaud's secretary. He remained in England, but was over here once or twice for a weekend. And everything else left unconditionally to his beloved wife, Eloise. So glad she has a name. Simply drawn up, but perfectly legal, witnessed by the two servants, Denise and Francois. Nothing so very unusual about that. He handed it back. Perhaps, began Bex, but did you notice the date? Twinkled Poirot. But yes, I noticed it a fortnight ago. Possibly marks his first intimation of danger. Many rich men die intestate, I don't know that word, through never considering the likelihood of their demise. But it is dangerous to draw conclusions prematurely. It points, however, to his having a real liking and fondness for his wife, in spite of his amorous intrigues. Yes, said Hautot doubtfully, but it is possibly a little unfair to his son, since it leaves him entirely dependent on his mother. How old is the son? If she were to marry again and her second husband obtained an ascendiary over her, the boy might never touch a penny of his father's money. Poirot shrugged his shoulders. Man is a vain animal. Renaud figured to himself without doubt that his widow would never marry again. As to the son, it may have been a wise precaution to leave the money in his mother's hands. The sons of rich men are proverbially wild. Okay. It may be as you say. Now, Poirot, you would without doubt like to visit the scene of the crime. I'm sorry that the body has been removed, but of course photographs have been taken from every conceivable angle. That can't be true. And will be at your disposal as soon as they are available. I thank you, monsieur, for all your courtesy. The commissary rose. Come with me, messieurs. He opened the door and bowed ceremoniously to Poirot to precede him. Poirot, with equal politeness, drew back and bowed to the commissary. Monsieur. Monsieur. At last they got out into the hall. I wanted that to go on for longer, but so much funnier. That room there, is it the study, Hein? I'm sorry, that's referring to someone, but I don't get it. Asked Poirot suddenly, nodding toward the door opposite. Yes, you would like to see it? He threw the door open as he spoke, and we entered. Yes, you'd like to see it? Sorry, that's how I'm picturing it. The room which Renaud had chosen for his own particular use was small, but furnished with great taste and comfort. A business-like writing desk with many pigeonholes stood in the window. Two large leather-covered armchairs faced the fireplace, and between them was a round table covered with the latest books and magazines. Bookshelves lined two of the walls, and at the end of the room opposite the window there was a handsome oak sideboard with a tantalus on top. The curtains and portiere were of a soft dull green, and the carpet matched them in tone. Poirot stood a moment talking in the room. Then he stepped forward, passed his hand lightly over the backs of the leather chairs. Yeah, fingerprints. Don't matter, white Poirot. Picked up a magazine from the table and drew a finger gingerly over the surface of the oak sideboard. His face expressed complete approval. No dust? I asked with a smile. He beamed on me, appreciative of my knowledge of his peculiarities. Not a single particle, mon ami, and for once, perhaps, it is a pity. His sharp bird-like eyes darted here and there. Ah, he remarked suddenly with an intonation of relief. The hearth-rug is crooked, and he bent down to straighten it. Suddenly he uttered an exclamation and rose. In his hand he held a small fragment of paper. In France, as in England, he remarked, the domestic omit to sweep under the mats. That's so rude. Okay. Bex took the fragment from him, and I came closer to examine it. You recognize it, Hastings? I shook my head, puzzled, and yet that particular shade of pink paper was very familiar. The commissary's mental processes were quicker than mine. A fragment of a check, he exclaimed. I would like to point out there is not an exclamation mark, even though it said he exclaimed. The piece of paper was roughly about 2 inches square. On it was written in ink the word Duveen. Bien, said Bex. The check was payable to, or drawn by, one named Duveen. The former, I fancy, said Poirot, for if I'm not mistaken, the handwriting is that of Renaud. That was soon established by comparing it with a memorandum from the desk. Dear me, murmured the commissary with a crestfallen air. I really cannot imagine how I came to overlook this. Poirot laughed. Doesn't spell out that, but I just wanted to do it. The moral of that is always look under the mats. My friend Hastings here will tell you that anything in the least crooked is a torment to me. As soon as I saw that the hearth rug was out of the straight, I said to myself, tiens, the leg of the chair caught it in being pushed back. Possibly there may have been something beneath it which the good Francois overlooked. Francois? Or Denise, or Leonie, whoever did the room. Since there is no dust, the room must have been done this morning. I reconstruct the incident like this. Yesterday, possibly last night, Renaud drew a check to the order of someone named Duveen. Afterwards, it was torn up and scattered on the floor. This morning. But Bex was already pulling impatiently at the bell. That must be a phrase. Oh, no, it's not a phrase, sorry. There's a bell to call the servants. Francois answered it. Yes, there had been a lot of pieces of paper on the floor. What had she done with them? Put them in the kitchen stove, of course. What else? Is that what you always do with paper? What business was this guy in? With a gesture of despair, Bex dismissed her. Then, his face lightening, he ran to the desk. In a minute, he was hunting through the dead man's checkbook. Then he repeated his former gesture. The last counterfoil was blank. Courage! Cried Poirot, clapping him on the back. Without doubt, Madame Renaud will be able to tell us all about the mysterious person named Duveen. Why? Why do you think she can? The commoner's face cleared. That is true. Let us proceed. As we turned to leave the room, Poirot remarked, It was here that Renaud received his guest last night, eh? It was, but how did you know? By this! I found it on the back of the leather chair. And he held up between his finger and thumb a long black hair. A woman's hair! Sorry, again, exclamation mark. Bex took us out by the back of the house to where there was a small shed leaning against the house. I feel like house was too many times. Anyways, he produced a key from his pocket and unlocked it. The body is here. You put the body in the shed behind the house. You couldn't, put it in a bedroom. Oh my god. He opened the door and we passed in. The murdered man lay on the ground with a sheet over him. Bex dexterously whipped off the covering. Renaud was a man of medium height, slender and lithe in figure. He looked about 50 years of age, and his dark hair was plentifully streaked with gray. He was clean-shaven with a long, thin nose, and eyes set rather close together, and his skin was deeply bronzed, as that of a man who had spent most of his life beneath tropical skies. His lips were drawn back from his teeth, and an expression of absolute amazement and terror was stamped on the livid features. One can see by his face that he was stabbed in the back, remarked Poirot. That, and by the stab wounds in his back, which I would argue is more relevant. I also don't think generally if I'm stabbed in the back, I'm going to be like, oh, this is amazing. Anyways, they did say amazed. Very gently, he turned the dead man over. There, between the shoulder blades, staining the light fawn overcoat, was a round, dark patch. In the middle of it, there was a slit in the cloth. Poirot examined it narrowly. Have you any idea with what weapon the crime was committed? It was left in the wound. The commissary reached down a large glass jar. Reached down, okay. And it was a small object that looked to me more like a paper knife than anything else. It had a black handle and a narrow, shining blade. The whole thing was not more than 10 inches long. That seems pretty long, though. Okay. Poirot tested the discolored point gingerly with his fingertip. Ma foi, but it is sharp. A nice, easy little tool for murder. I mean, who cares about evidence? We're just gonna handle it all. Cool. Okay. Unfortunately, we could find no trace of fingerprints on it, remarked Bex regretfully. I would like to point out Poirot did not know that when he picked it up. The murderer must have worn gloves. Of course he did, said Poirot contemptuously. Even in Santiago they know enough for that. It's cool. Great. That's a weird thing to say. The veriest amateur of an English mise knows it. Thanks to the publicity the Bertillon system has been given in the press. All the time it interests me very much that there were no fingerprints. It is so amazingly simple to leave the fingerprints of someone else. And then the police are happy. He shook his head. I very much fear our criminal is not a man of method. Either that, or he was pressed for time, but we shall see. He let the body fall back into its original position. He wore only underclothes under his overcoat, I see, he remarked. Yes, the examining magistrate thinks that is rather a curious point. At the minute there was a tap on the door, which Bex had closed after him. He strode forward and opened it. François was there. She endeavored to peep in with ghoulish curiosity. Well, what is it? Demanded Bex impatiently. Madame, she sends a message that she is much recovered and is quite ready to receive the examining magistrate. Good, said Bex briskly. Tell Hotet that we will come at once. Poirot lingered a moment, looking back towards the body. I thought for a moment that he was going to apostrophize it. I don't know what that means. To declare aloud his determination never to rest till he had discovered the murderer. Okay, I kind of get what he means now. But when he spoke, it was tamely and awkwardly, and his comment was ludicrously inappropriate for the solemnity of the moment. He wore his overcoat very long, he said constrainedly. And that is the end of chapter 4.